So hello everyone, and thank you for joining for this session. So my name is Jerome Labo. I'm the CTO of Uno Platform, and I'm joined by Nick. And we're all going to be talking about Uno Platform and the buzz that's been happening for the past few hours about Uno Platform and the tool that we announced. So I want to start with a thank you. Thank you for we've been building the Uno Platform for about 8 years now, and the response has been amazing. And as an open source maintainer, you always love to see the usage grow and the product being used by companies and bigger communities, and get larger contribution. And having a myriad of followers and contributors that we couldn't be happier, to be honest. So we'd like to thank also the companies that are adopting Uno and helping us and co-invest in Uno to make it a better platform in the future. So it's amazing to see all of this happening. So working on Uno for the past 8 years, I mean, when I started to show this slide a while back, when we started 8 years ago, it was quite small, and presenting it was mostly a UI framework, and now with a few boxes, and now it's no longer a framework. I mean, we've added so many boxes that's it's a platform, and as such, because there are so many boxes, let me tell you all about the pieces that we have in Uno Platform, because they tend to get forgotten along the way, particularly with all the pieces that we've been adding over the release. So I'll start at the bottom. First and foremost, the Uno is a UI framework to build single code-based apps, and it runs everywhere that it runs, and it runs literally everywhere. And people are adding new frameworks, new platforms to support along the way. And with that UI framework, we work with a single code base, single project with our new Uno SDK, and that Uno SDK is all about simplifying versioning, simplifying dependencies, and I'll show you with a demo later during this session how that looks, and how simple that has become over the years. And we're meaning it to be a flexible platform. You can choose between native or Skia rendering. You can choose between for your markup. You can choose Skia, and you can choose between XAML and C#, whichever you prefer. You can choose to work in your favorite IDE, whether it's VS Code, Writer, Visual Studio, and on your favorite operating system, whichever it is. And on top of this, we really want to have on top of that flexibility, you really want to have beautiful apps. Your apps must be beautiful with the themes and design system that we're providing as part of our out of the box experience. And rich apps, we want you also to have rich apps by tapping into our extensions. With all those cross-cutting concerns that you may not want to implement, providing the building blocks for your apps to be started up and going really quickly, from auth to nav to MAUI embedding to localization. You can pretty much start quickly with all of those. Also, rich apps can mean using our toolkit components like tab bars, drawers, shadow containers, and more recently, OpenGL support, WebView, Lottie, you name it. It's all those controls to make your app richer. Plus, you also have an awesome third-party ecosystem with community toolkits, from maps to live charts, and of course, using MAUI extensions. You have a whole host of additional component vendor from MAUI that you can integrate into your apps. And finally, we have all the tooling in place for you to get started quickly with UnoCheck, with the project wizard to get you to know all the features that we have and get started with running an app directly, to having the ability to package your apps, resize your assets, and of course, making your CI pipelines better, and to deploy your app to stores with the packages that you build for your apps. That's pretty much what we have. And so now that we've been building all of this for the past few years, from the past year, we've been building something pretty cool. And you might have seen the buzz on .NET Conf, the hashtag today. And we showed an early preview of that to a few hundred people. And they had a few reactions that we want to share with you today. Let me roll that video.
Gosh, where do I start? It's awesome. This is I feel like this is something that I've been hearing developers ask for. I mean, going all the way back to when I worked at Xamarin.
Just the productivity of being able to sit in your code in real time and make those changes is massive.
This is just amazing. Sorry, I mean, I sound like I'm a cheerleader here, but I mean, you're just addressing like everything I hate about XAML.
And trust me, I think they're right. This stuff is super, super exciting. I can't wait to share it with you. So for today, we've got two key announcements that we're making. The first is the Uno Platform Studio. So built on top of the Uno open source project, it's a suite of tools that will make you more productive, whether you're a designer or a developer. In the design space, you can take design to code with our Figma plugin. For a pixel perfect design to either XAML or C# markup, which is going to reduce the risk and the effort required for taking a design all the way through to that developer handoff process. In the developer space, we're offering a premium hot reload experience that works across all target platforms, whatever IDE you're in or whatever operating system you're running on. So the second key announcement and the big hype for the day is, of course, Hot Design, which is something you guys have all been asking for years. Hot Design is the next generation visual designer that turns your running app into a design canvas and works wherever you want to work, in whatever IDE you're running, and whatever operating system you're running on. Jerome, let's roll the video. All right, so we've all used designers of the past, whether it was back in the Fox Pro VB6 days or more recently with the WPF Designer or Blend for UWP. These work at design time and basically try to do a faithful representation of what the design would look like when it's running in the app. They often rely on fake or mock data that needs to be exactly curated in order for the design to work. And that takes time and effort, and often the whole process falls apart and they go by the wayside. More recently, there's been a lot of tools that run at runtime, allowing for introspection or ad hoc modification of the running application. But that's all they are. They're not editors, and as soon as you stop the application, your changes are lost. With Hot Design, the designer is at runtime, meaning it has access to your data, so there's no need to create additional mock data. And as an editor, your changes are faithfully represented and saved as you go. This is the first of its kind, not only in the .NET space, but all across all other development frameworks. And for that, we're going to hop into a demo. Okay, so one thing we've got a sample application here that we're going to use. It's called Chefs. It's a cookbook style application, and we're going to drill into Hot Design and actually take a look at how we can build out the recipe details page within the application. Now, before I do that, I want to call out this sort of floating toolbar that's available at debug time. It is a debug-only feature. It's not going to show when you do your release build. It's not something that you need to manually comment out or remove as you go through that release process. And this is the entry point for a couple of things. So firstly, let me just zoom into this so we can see it a little bit clearer. On the right-hand side here, we've got our hot reload indicator. So this is our sort of a premium hot reload experience that sort of announces modifications, etc., as they apply through to the UI. And then on the left-hand side, we've got our hot design button. And so this is the entry point into the hot design experience. Now, I mentioned that we're going to be doing the recipe details page, but when I launched the application, I realized that these buttons down the bottom here aren't particularly styled very well. So we're actually going to hop into Hot Design and we're actually going to modify these and update the style in accordance with the rest of the application. So I click the Hot Design button And our running application goes from just being a running application to being a design canvas. So we can see our application still running in the center of the screen. Wrapped around it, there's a chrome that basically indicates the boundaries of our running application. And you'll notice as I hover over each of the elements, you can see that there's a selection border that notifies me that I can select on it, and that will become the active element. In the top left-hand corner, we've got our toolbox, and I can drag elements from there onto the design surface. This features not only the standard components, but also any third-party components that you might have brought in, or any custom controls that you might have built within your application. In the elements tree down the bottom, we can see a document outline or sort of a hierarchical view of the elements on our page. This is particularly good for selecting or moving elements where you may not be able to access them easily on the design canvas. Whether you select something in the elements tree or you select it on the design canvas, you'll see that a border is presented around the selected element with information about the element type and its size. In the right-hand side, we can now see our property grid has lit up, and it's full of the properties that are available for that particular element that's selected. At the top, we can see a toolbar, and this allows us to do switch between different form factors and switch between design themes, allowing us to test for those different scenarios. Let me just expand out the screen, and I'm just going to give ourselves a little bit more space on these tool windows. And you'll notice as I do that, the application is slightly resizing in the middle. I can go beyond that. I can actually pick between different form factors. So rather than having to manually guess, I can switch between these breakpoints and see how our application is going to respond to those different size devices. Let me return back to full screen. And I'm actually going to zoom into this bottom section. So it's a design canvas, so I can zoom, hold down Control, scroll on the mouse, and then hold down the mouse wheel, and you can basically move the position of the design canvas. Here's our next button, and as I mentioned before, they're not particularly styled very well, but it's actually, the situation is actually worse than that. If I switch to dark theme, you'll see that the buttons actually completely disappear. So let's just go ahead and fix that. And we do that by the style picker at the top of the property grid. We've tried to elevate the use of styles to try and encourage developers to, rather than going and setting individual properties, the first call to action should be going to apply the appropriate style, much in the same way as Microsoft tries to do that in Word and elevates the styles to the top of the application. So let's go ahead and actually pick one of the pre-existing styles for this. So this is the chef's primary button style, and you'll see that that's immediately applied to the button in the middle here. If I switch between dark and light theme, I can now see that that's fixed one of the problems. And the application is looking much better than it used to. So let me zoom out. And I want to call attention to this play button here. So right now we're in selection mode, which basically means I move around, I can select on different elements. But if I actually want to see how my application is behaving, I can go into, hit the play button, and now I'm into a mode where I can actually click on the different items and still interact with the application. Let me come back out of that into selection mode. And I'm just going to exit out of hot design back to the main part of our application. I'm going to skip forward a couple of pages in our application. I'm actually going to find our recipe details page. So I'm going to log in, and you'll see that the application is full of data that's available. And I can click on to the particular item here, and this is our recipe details page. And there's nothing here. Okay, so this is the page that we need to present. And so let me just actually switch across to Figma so you get an idea of what this page should look like. And so we've got navigation bar at the top, hero image on the left-hand side, and we've got a list of ingredients on the right-hand side. So those are the core elements that we're going to add to our design surface when we're back in hot design here. I'm going to start by going and actually splitting up the screen into various quadrants so that I can actually get the layout correctly. So we're going to change the column definition. So I'm going to add an extra column here. And you'll see as I do that, the column divider actually appears, give me a visual cue that I've actually got extra columns there. We'll do the same with the row definitions. So I'll add another row here. For this one, I'm going to set it to auto. And the problem with that is that obviously I haven't got any elements in there, so it's going to resize back to 0. So it's not that it's disappeared, it's just sized to 0. We'll fix that almost straight away by actually coming over to our toolbox, finding the navigation bar, and dragging it into our elements tree like that. And it will be situated in the first row and column of our grid. Now we actually want it to span across the top, so let me just change the span of that to 2. And while we're here, we may as well set some content on here. And so we're going to drill down and actually use our binding data context explorer here. And you'll see that I've actually got the data context for the current page available to me. And as I drill into the current recipe, you can actually see that I've not only got the properties that are available, but I've actually got the current value of those properties, making it really easy for me to know what I'm supposed to be data binding to. And when I select on that, you'll see that the navigation bar has updated with the title of the recipe that we're on. So let me kind of repeat that similar sort of process, but for the image. So the hero image, I'm going to drag across onto the left-hand side here. We'll come across here, and again, we'll go into our binding editor to find the image for the recipe. Now, this kind of doesn't present exactly like it was in the design, so let me just change a couple of options here. So we'll change that to uniform to fill, and we'll actually center that in the design. One thing to note here is that you'll see that the selection border isn't just showing it around the visible section, it's actually around the entire render section. And if you've worked in mobile space before, you'll know that performance and large images don't perform particularly well. So knowing that it's actually presenting or rendering a larger size than it actually is on visible is quite useful to know. Now we need our ingredients list. So let me just grab the list view here, and I'll drop that into the right-hand side here. And we'll go and set the item source, again, using our data binding explorer to drill down into here, and we've got our ingredients list. Now this presents in the usual 2-string fashion, and of course that's not great. So let's just go and create an item template for this. So this is our item template or data template editor. We'll select the grid that's been added for us. We're going to add a couple of column definitions. So, and this time I'm going to select the a fixed width one. So I'm going to specify 50 pixels. And again, you'll see that the vertical divider appears, giving me an indication of where those grid line, the columns are. I'll grab the image and drag that onto here. And we're going to just grab a quick text block and jump that into there. And I'll go ahead and actually data bind that up. Again, using our data context explorer. What's interesting here is that the data context has changed. We're actually in the context of that list view. And so we've got the data context that just shows the information about the ingredient. And we're actually showing the first item in here, which is why we're actually seeing it data values in here. Go ahead and data bind that. Let me just adjust things like some font size. So let's set to 36. We'll add a quick margin on here. And we'll actually vertically align this in the center. Let me just do the same to the image. So we'll set the data source onto here. And we'll use the image there. Now this is going to try and scale it really badly. So let me just turn scaling off there. And that's looking a lot better. So I'm going to come out of here, but I'm actually going to just switch back to Visual Studio just to give you an idea of what the XAML looks like when it's generated here. And you can see here that the layout here of, we can see the elements that we've added. So we've seen the navigation bar, the image, the list view, along with the data template. And we've tried to keep this code as condensed as possible. So we're not adding superfluous properties or default values or anything like that. Okay, and let's return to the running application. And there we have our ingredients list, our UI for the navigation bar and the hero image. Now, I could spend more time just going in through the individual items, but I actually wanted to showcase just another component that we have and support for third-party controls. So this is another page of the same recipe details page. This is showing the nutrition tab here with a custom control here on the right-hand side. So this is actually, sorry, it's not a custom control, it's a third-party control. It's our chart. And you'll see that this is the Figma plugin, allowing us to preview what the design is going to look like when it's rendering within an application. You'll see here that there's a placeholder for this third-party control because the Figma plugin doesn't know about all the third-party libraries that you're going to be using in your application. I'm going to come across to the Export tab. We've already got the XAML generated for us. I'm going to copy that, return back to Visual Studio, and actually copy this over the XAML that we already have here. And through the power of hot reload, we're going to switch back to the application, and our UI has been updated accordingly. And so what I need to do now is actually add in that third-party control. So I'm going to find the Cartesian chart. I'm going to drop it into here. And again, we're going to come to here and we're going to wire up some data to this, allowing me to set the series on there, and that's going to populate the data here. One last thing I just wanted to highlight here is that our custom control is here, and the chart that we've just added is here. And let me just double check that. And when we come back to our application, I'm going to come out of hot design, and I can then switch to other pages, and it's going to be populated for different recipes. So you can see that it's not just faked up for that one page, it actually works across all of the various pages within our application. And that's going to be it for the demo for hot design. Hopefully this gives you a good flavor for the capabilities that's available in our design tool, and I'll hand back to Jerome for the rest of the demo.
Thank you, Nick. This is amazing demos for sure, and continuing all of this, and I want to take a step back and guide everyone onto the inner dev loop to take a look at how to create an app from the beginning and go up to deploying an app and making a package out of it. So let's go take a look at that. So what you see here is a Linux machine that has a few things set up. And the first thing that you want to do when you start developing for an Uno application is make sure that you have Uno check installed. So you run the .NET tool updates to make sure that you have the latest version. And then when you run Uno check, it will make sure that it validates all the points that are all the dependencies, all the SDKs and things like that that need to be added to your system so that it works properly. Once you're done with this, you're good to go. The application is going to run properly. Now, the next step is to create your project. To create your project, there are multiple ways. The first one is when you're on Linux to use new.platform.uno, which is our own wizard that we also use in the same code we use in Visual Studio on Windows. And you can use it on Writer as well. There's a wizard that's available there to create your applications. Now, what I'm going to do is just create a new app here and start and allow to select all the options that we have inside of an Uno app. So I talked about all those options that we have for creating beautiful apps and productive apps and rich apps. And you can select from the two templates, so blank if you want to start from scratch, or recommended if you want to use everything that we suggest to use by default. You can change and switch from your platform, use whichever you want. For the presentation, change from MVVM to MVUX. And for the markup, use either C# or XAML. And then you can choose over from all the features that we provide down below. Once you're done, you can click the Create button. It will provide you either with a command line you can run on Linux or on desktop if you other desktops if you want to use VS Code directly, or if you're using a wizard integrated into other IDEs like VS or Writer, it's going to create the solution directly. Now, I can go ahead and paste that. It will create this. It will create the application directly, and in the interest of time, I've created that application directly. What you can see here is the same application opened in Visual Studio Code that's using the amazing C# dev kit with all the goodness that I did recently. And the session before was about NuGet and adding and manipulating NuGet packages. That is super awesome to manipulate C# projects there. And we're talking about the Uno SDK in a single project. This is what it is. So we have one C# file, one CSproj file that's using the Uno SDK, and you will see that in that file there's pretty much nothing. There's no package references by default. If you can add some if you want, but by default it's automatically included by the Uno SDK. There's also a bit of package metadata. So if you want to create packages in the end, all of that will end up being provided directly in the package that you're creating. There's a few other folders there, like the platforms, with regards to individual projects and files. But let's not go too much into that details. You can find that in our documentation when you're starting a new project. Now, what I'm going to do is just start the app from there, and you can see here my favorite feature of .NET 9. It's a small one, but it's favorite. It shows what the build tooling is doing, and now we can see that it's core compiling and running the C# compiler. And when it's done, it's going to be starting the app directly. So here's the app that I have, and one of the things that Nick glossed over because the demo was about hot design is the tooling here. And we have that new icon that we added a few releases back that shows the state of hot reload. So when you're making manipulations to the app from the code that's in your app, you can say and see if the application has received a hot reload information or if there was issues there. So let me show you what that means. So for instance, I can remove the scroll viewer here and let's say use a calendar date picker, for instance. So if I hit save, the hot reload tooling is going to pick up the changes, and then it's going to hot reload and add my calendar date picker in my application. So you can see that it's an actual date picker that is running that I just added by doing hot reload. And the events told me that the main page was updated because there were some changes in there. So for instance, if I do something like this and I write something that's incorrect, then I'm gonna see compilation errors and the hot reload didn't happen, but the app will tell me that didn't happen. So now I can go back and change, let's say, add a light green, and then when I update everything right away, within milliseconds, the update is done, and you can view your changes in the same way that Nick has done for his demo. That's pretty much what you can see with the update there. And now you can go over to use Hot Design to continue designing your application and make it even more awesome and rich using all the tooling that we provide. Now, as we're done building the app, what we can do is just package it. And that's one of the features that we've added recently in Uno. And there's a new command that we added, which allows to take an application and package it as a snap file that you can publish on the Snap Store for Linux. I'm not going to run that command because it takes a few minutes, but it creates a snap package, a snap file that you can install using snap install here. So that I can run because it's quite fast, and it's taking the snap file, installing it on my desktop, or posting it directly on the Snap Store. And if I go and search for chefs here, it's going to show me that my app was just installed and that it's running with the same UI that you saw in Nick's demo. Pretty much the same thing. So it's super fast and super easy. Just two commands: publish to create the snap, and you can install it or publish. That's the first target. And the second target would be to go directly to Mac OS and pretty much do the same thing. It's going to be a quick one. I've done the same build, same thing. I got a .app folder that's in my publish folder when I build my app, and I can just take that application, put it into the applications folder on Mac OS, double click on the app, and off we go. It should start if it wants to double click. Oh, I'd probably double click. Yeah, there you go. It was in two selections. So that the app is starting. It's using all the icons that you created for your app, using our resizing tooling, and everything is using your application's asset directly. So there you go. That's pretty much an end-to-end, the dev loop about creating your app and publishing to the stores done this way. That's it. We have, we can't wait for us to try all of those tools. Join us for the waiting list. You can try Uno directly on the website, and we wish you to see us. We wish for you to see us on our communities and discuss everything that we just announced today, and give us feedback. Thank you, everyone, for watching.